Hello, Chuck. How are we doing today?
Good, Marty. How are you doing, buddy?
Me, I'm loving life. I want to talk to you today about something that I not only know you're familiar with, but was absolutely impressed the first time I read it. And that was when I was going through your book, Tactical Jazz.
Yep.
You had a page in there that talked about 5 principles, and you had a little star that made that the principles of how I'm going to say it this way, how to make sure you've got your bases covered when we're thinking about how to move forward in life.
Okay.
I think that works for a battlefield, but I also think it works in life.
Absolutely. Yep.
Um, and then you had a glue, if you will, that kept it all together.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about?
I do. Yeah, I'm familiar with the diagram.
Okay. And so maybe, because I don't want to jump into the space, this is your expertise.
Okay.
Take a couple minutes and maybe just explain what this system is to us.
Paint a word picture.
I love it.
Okay. So the diagram that you're talking about, Marty, is partway through my little book there. Time for a plug. Tactical Jazz, which is all about synchronization, right? And how you build synchronicity in teams that you lead. And whether it's a military team or, whether you're the manager at a Costco or it's all the same, right? So I thought when I put this together, and I took this from a previous lecture that I used to give, I thought, well, it's always nice to have a visual for people who are seeing this maybe for the first or second time. And I start using German terms like Auftragstaktik, and even though we use the English version, which isn't very good, mission command. Mission command sounds very military. And, if you are the manager of a delivery company and you've got 25 drivers, yeah, you don't want to use that kind of terminology because might turn them off. You want to talk about teamwork and cohesion and all. So I came up with this 5-pointed star, just your typical star. And so imagine that you've got this 5-pointed star. At the top of the star is synchronization. And then as you move around the star, and the order doesn't matter, then you've got intent, which is, what is it that the leader wants to achieve? Cohesion, the group cohesion, initiative, both as a group and as an individual, and then synergy. Those are components. And then there's one thing that must exist, and it sits in the center of the star, and is trust. Because if there is no trust, none of these things can be fully realized. You might be able to get some synergy, which for those that maybe this word is new, synergy is when the result is greater than the addition of its bits, right? So I think the easiest thing to think about synergy is imagine looking at your 5 fingers on your hand. If you have one finger and you poke it, that's 1 out of 5. 2 fingers and poke 2 fingers, that's 2 out of 5. Eventually you get to the whole fist. It should only be 5 times 1 finger. Anybody who's punched anybody knows that it's a lot stronger than that. That's the synergistic effect, where the outcome is greater than the sum of its parts. But if you don't have trust, you can't get all of these things. You can get 1, you can get 2, you might get lucky, but you absolutely must have trust. The leader must trust the subordinates must trust the leader, and then everyone must trust each other, irrespective of where they sit, whether it's a hierarchy or a group or a collective, right? With or without structure. And so, excuse me, that's what the star is there to help the reader in this book appreciate as they attempt to understand the concept of synchronization. So, and you can see it gets a little bit fuzzy for some people, because if you're the type of person that sees things in black and white, you may have some trouble, because a lot of these things can be either initiators or outcomes, right? So I like to see them as outcomes. So by using the right tools in the right way, then you achieve synergy as opposed to trying to impose synergy. Same thing with initiative. You achieve initiative. I mean, it's almost impossible to force initiative, right? I actually had a general do that to me, and a couple of guys say, I want you to do the following, and I want you to, you will use your initiative. What? It didn't work. He didn't understand. Cohesion is an outcome, right? You build it over time using tools. And the same thing with intent is not that you build intent, but the commander, the leader, creates the intent. But whether that intent is realized is an outcome, right? And then again, synchronization. And for anybody who has looked at this or read the book or is interested in this, there are two ways to look at synchronization. And in the book, I explained that different militaries look at it differently. I see synchronization as an outcome, something that you achieve naturally. Some people see synchronization as something that you can force using what the military calls a synchronization matrix, right? So you build a matrix and, it tells you do this at this time to achieve this. And it can get quite complicated, as you can imagine, especially if you're trying to achieve synchronization, say, of a fleet maneuver or, an army division, right? The synchronization matrix could have hundreds of cells. And there are military people who think that you can actually use this to achieve it. I don't believe it. I believe that synchronization, if you use the tools that are at hand, if you employ them and motivate your team and your team members understand what it is you're going to achieve, intent, and there's trust in all of these things, that synchronization is the outcome. And this all comes under the rubric, the aegis of Auftragstaktik, which is one of the reasons, one of many, that this philosophy, Auftragstaktik, mission command, is talked about a lot, but very seldom practiced, because we tend to take an overly simplistic view of it. Oh, it's just another tool, right? No, it's not just another tool. It's a way of life, right? So, you can read a book on Buddhism. Being a Buddhist is hard. As a couple of, altar boys, you and I, we know that, you can read the catechism. Living the catechism is a lot harder than just, oh yeah, I'm a Catholic. You may say you're a Catholic, I know I'm not. I say I'm a Catholic, but if His Holiness was sitting at the table with us, he'd be looking at us and smiling. I know you guys. Does that start?
Yeah, that's a great place to start. And I love, so it's interesting when you talked about synchronization, and I'm going to call it adopted synchronization as opposed to imposed synchronization.
Okay.
And this notion that we can impose it. So when I think of synchronization, and forgive the old radioman here, but I'm going to see harmonics in sound.
Yes.
That when you've got a sound wave, you can force that wave to harmonic with another one.
Yep.
But that's because it's a wave.
Right.
And waves are malleable. And so, like, when you use the word command, mission command, command is to be directed to. I can direct sound to sound that way in an orchestra so that we're going to play in a harmonic and a synchronized. However, we're human.
Right.
And as you said, if I said, I order you to be harmonic right now, right. I do not have a singing voice. I'm good for a podcast, but not good for singing. Right. I can't achieve that harmonic vocally. What do we do as leaders when we've been asked to create synchronization with people who may or may not feel they can achieve synchronization? How do we create, and I guess what we're really asking is, how do we create that space of trust where we can move into, whether it's synchronization or cohesion? I think those two things are both heavily related.
Right.
Because if you're not coalesced, you're not going to synchronize. But if you're not synchronized, you're not going to coalesce.
Right. Right. So that's a good question, Marty. And I think that your use of harmonic leads me to use the example that I used in the book, which is the difference between jazz music and symphonic music. So, and that's why the book is called Tactical Jazz, because it uses jazz as an example. The leader example in the book comes from the novel that I wrote, Cohort, where the leader, Skip, the colonel, is teaching his new soldiers that he's hired how he wants them to achieve synchronization. And these guys, almost all of them, are non-coms and have never been introduced to this concept. The two guys that work for him that have been introduced were both senior officers, and they know the leader for decades, so they're familiar. So he's trying to explain to his new paramilitary group, how is it that we do this? And he uses the example of the difference between a jazz combo and an orchestra. So music is a good analogy because I think most people can relate. We've all listened to symphonic music. Now, if you listen to it on the radio or on your phone or whatever music player you've got, you don't fully appreciate. You can appreciate the beauty of the music, but you don't fully appreciate how many moving parts there are. But if you sit in a theater and watch a philharmonic orchestra play something, play a symphony, play an opera, something that, there's 100 and some odd instruments coming in and out, they're reading from a set piece of music. And these are all professional musicians. And there's a conductor, and the conductor is influencing and guiding each section of the orchestra to achieve the music. Because, think of something like a song or music that everybody knows, Beethoven's Fifth, right? Bum, 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 right? So it's been recorded like 1,000 times. Well, you think to yourself, well, how can it be recorded 1,000 times? The music is written down. It should always be the same. Well, it's not, right? The conductor actually adds flavor. When to come in the downbeat, when to emphasize the violins, when to back off on the oboes, etc., etc. Interestingly, when Beethoven wrote it, there were no conductors. They followed the lead of the first violinist. So they were building synchronicity, synchronization, without a conductor. In the modern era, very few, if any, orchestras don't have a conductor. A jazz combo, they don't have music. They know the song. They may start by reading the music and go because they don't know the piece. But if you've ever watched a jazz combo, whether it's a quartet or sextet or an octet, doesn't matter. They're never reading music. They're feeling the music. And they come in and go out and add and subtract and riff, right, to use a musical term, as they feel it. And they're building, and they know when to stop playing. No one's saying to them, I want you to pause the drum, and let the piano player riff off for 4 minutes. No, they feel, oh, okay, Eddie's in the groove. Let Eddie play, So how do you achieve this? Well, both ways are achieved with enormous amounts of practice. But I would contend, maybe I'm wrong, but I would say in the Philharmonic example, there's trust. You got to trust that the people are paying attention to the conductor, but nothing near the trust that you've got when there is no leader and everybody's stepping in and stepping out as they feel the need in order to build the best music they can. See the difference?
Mm-hmm.
Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. And in there, as I think about what you just said, in terms of that, and coming back to trust, you have to trust your conductor.
Right.
And so Tactical Jazz came out after you wrote Cohort, correct? Your novel?
Yes.
And it was influenced by the novel. I guess they were influencing each other. Is that correct?
Tactical Jazz was written because a friend of mine from high school, shout out to Angelo Mattaccioni. I know you like to listen to me talk. Poor guy. Angelo and I were in high school together. He read the novel and then sent me an email saying, Chuck, I'm really interested in this synchronization stuff that, can you explain that? That sounds really cool. Because Angelo is a graduate and professional engineer. And so, when you're working on an engineering problem, there's not a whole lot of riffing going on. Right? You've got some very physics works against you. You don't get to improvise. So he said to me, you could write a book about just this. And I thought, nah. And then I thought, well, Angelo's right. I'll give it a shot.
I love that story. Thank you for sharing that. When I first read the cohort, and I think we talked about this in one of the very first times that we got together, one of the things I noticed about the cohort itself, so the team of individuals who got together,
right,
was, I'm going to use the word cohesion, how fast they all moved together.
Yeah.
And I think that had to do, and we talked a little bit about this, when you're a veteran talking to another veteran, there's an automatic trust built right into that.
Yes.
And so that team, not only, so competency and cohesion are two different things. Every member of that cohort had competency walking in the door. If they didn't have competency, they wouldn't have been there.
Correct.
But that doesn't mean they're going to work together.
No, absolutely right.
And that cohesion part, because that was one of the things we talked about, was they seem to cohese effortlessly. And I think that comes from military members who've worked with other military members.
Yes.
When you come in a room, we go, you understand the language, I understand the language, and it is its own language.
Yes.
Being a veteran or being a still serving member has its own language.
Exactly. How
do we build that trust when you're learning the language or you're unfamiliar with the language or you're trying to, because we've certainly seen civilian and military teams cohese together.
Yes.
But language in this case matters. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on how we can smooth the instruments so that we're all playing off the same song sheet.
Okay. No one's ever asked me that. Let's go back and start with your comment, which is absolutely right. When we meet ex-military people, if you and I went down to the Legion after we finished recording this and walked in and didn't know anybody in the room, within 15 or 20 minutes, we'd be laughing and joking and drinking coffee and maybe having a beer because we all shared a background, whether it was in Army, Navy, Air Force, SOF, didn't matter. I think what sets us on the right path is that we automatically give benefit of doubt to another veteran, which says, unspoken, I'm going to trust you until you demonstrate to me that I shouldn't, right? And so if we move then into a sphere where you're trying to build this same sort of thing, but you don't have a bunch of veterans, you may have one, or you may be the only one, and you have to build some kind of an organization. It's going to take longer because you don't necessarily have that same level of faith that you'll understand what you're saying. They don't use your language. They don't understand your slang. So you're going to have to be careful how you speak. But now we get into the, leader follower situation model. So if you're the leader, you got a bunch of followers, you have to respect that they may have different viewpoints than you and the situation's a little different, but it starts the same way, which is you need to demonstrate to them in action and in language that you're giving them trust until such time as they demonstrate that they're not worthy of that trust. And that may include, if they let you down, gather them and say, hey, listen, I trusted you guys and you let me down. Was I wrong to trust you? Or was I misunderstood? Or did I do something that caused you not to trust me? And therefore you did what I didn't expect you to do. So let's talk about this to make sure that we can save this, build more trust before it goes too far in the wrong direction. So you're looking to do the same things with the same tools, but a lot of them have to be, it's sort of like you're building the airplane while it's in the air a little bit.
You just described what I've used as a coaching principle for some time.
Okay.
The coaching principle I've used for leadership for some time has basically, and it's actually principle one, which is if you're a leader, it's go first, top cover. And what I heard you say there was if you want to be trusted, you have to trust first.
Right.
You've got to put that out there until you've given, and again, what you have said for veterans, we assume trust until it's broken. And even the first time you and I met, retired colonel, retired petty officer, didn't necessarily have a lot in common at the table, but we had a situation came up where we had to trust each other pretty quick. And we just went,
yeah,
hey, Army, Navy, let's go. Boom. Because we just trusted each other.
Right. Yeah.
So trust first and top cover. I got your back.
Right.
Because even in that scenario, when I'm like, I need you to have my back. We're going to go do this thing.
Yeah.
And you were like, okay, let's do it. And we did. We had each other's back in that moment. And so I just love that as a principle. If we're going to get to synchronicity, that notion of trust first, have the back to build that trust is essential. It's the glue.
Exactly. And I've been in situations where, how can I say this without, well, when I was commanding in Europe, on Folex, we would have weekends off. And I know some units would not allow their soldiers to go into town on the weekends because, they might get drunk, they might embarrass the uniform. The local villagers would then have a bad view of what Allied forces were doing in their area because, Folexes were 8 weeks long. You annoy the Germans and they're not going to let you in their village, And we always had a very positive view. Part of it was they loved Canadians. I mean, I remember bringing a tank squadron through a village very, very slowly. And kids would be running around looking at the tanks. And, old ladies would come out with coffee and cookies. My point to my soldiers on the weekends was, I am not going to deny you the opportunity to go in and have a real meal at a gas stuff, right? Although, in some of the units in this brigade, you won't see any of your buddies because the COs have said, no, we're locking down for the weekend. You're stuck wherever we are until Monday morning when we start up again. So I'm not going to deny you. But, and this is me talking to 600 guys, but one of you gets in trouble. What that says to me is that your buddies didn't take care of you. So that'll be the last weekend when I get to do this. So 8 weeks in the field, never had an incident. Not because they were angels. Far from it. Because they took care of each other. Right? They knew that I trusted them. But more important than me trusting them, they trusted each other.
Yeah, I love that. Not only do they trust each other, they trusted each other and had the other person's back.
Precisely.
Someone had top cover.
Yeah.
As long as we top cover each other, the colonel's top covering us. And that works.
Yeah.
That is amazing. I want to say thank you. Oh. Any when you were writing Tactical Jazz, any little bit that came out that you're just like, lesson learned?
Oh, God.
As we wrap up.
Not something that I can think of off the top of my head, but other than to say, I going back at this book, I probably should have made it twice as long.
Okay. Well, we're talking about language.
Right.
And forgive me, the German for it, I don't think I've ever pronounced correctly. Can you say it for me again, please?
Auftragstaktik.
Auftragstaktik.
Well done, you.
Yeah. Okay. We're trying. But you said that's the literal translation is mission command?
No, that's the English military translation.
The English military translation.
It's command mission.
Okay.
No, wait a second. It's mission tactics is more correct.
Mission tactics.
Mission.
Okay.
Auftrag is a mission or a duty or a task, and Taktik is tactics.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for the tactics that we did in this podcast because we just had a wonderful podcast. And I want to say thank you because we've completed yet one more.
Thank you, Marty. Always a pleasure.
I'm looking forward to the next time, Chuck.
As am I.